welcome to the Art of Being Human. Today I'm going to start a study on suicide notes. I think it will take the whole segment, but I don't think it'll take much more than that. But there's a lot to be said about suicide notes. Who writes them? Why do they write them? Why do some people write false notes that are not suicidal, but they sound so much like real suicidal notes that you have to study them to see if there are differences so you can pick up on what's real and what's not real. It's kind of like a subdivision of psychology for certain people to study these suicide notes and what they mean. But it's important in real life too, because if you were to find a suicide note, or you were to give a suicide note to a doctor because you'd found it, how would they know if the note was real and they had to intervene immediately to save a person's life, or whether it wasn't real and it was done for some other purpose? Only about 37%, about a third of the people who are suicidal write notes. A lot of people don't, but a third of people do write notes, and that's an interesting phenomenon in itself. Why does a person even write a note? But they do. 1/3 of people write suicide notes, and the real notes show that the impending suicide or an attempted suicide is about to occur. But there are fake notes too. Fake notes sound just exactly like real notes, or usually sound pretty close to real notes, and yet there are some things about them that may be different, that may be important for a person to know if they're reading a note, to get some kind of a sense as to how soon a suicide attempt will be made, or whether they probably won't have to face a suicide attempt. So let's take the fake notes. Why would anyone write a fake suicide note? Usually it's for manipulation. I want you to pay attention to me, you're not paying enough attention to me, and because you're not paying enough attention to me, I have to do something to get your attention, so I'm going to threaten. You know, it's like a bomb threat. No one's going to put a bomb in a building, but they're going to threaten to do it because they need to have attention. Well, a suicide note is the same thing. If you don't pay attention to me because I feel you're not paying attention to me and I need that, well, you know, I'm going to kill myself. And that will get a person's attention real quickly. Nothing quite gets a person's attention quicker than a threat, either a threat against them or a suicide note. Even if it's fake, because you can't always tell the difference. And so it can be done by manipulation to get attention that they feel that they're not getting, that a person feels they're not getting. Mainly, and also to change things. You know, I will commit suicide if this doesn't change, if that doesn't change. And so a person usually is willing to change something for somebody else just to keep them alive. I don't know how many girls get caught up in this trap. A boy says, if you leave me, I'll kill myself. I love you, I want you as my girlfriend. If you stop being my girlfriend, I will kill myself. And the girl feels so responsible for the guy's life that she stays with him even if she doesn't want to. Now, that's really not a good thing. She should say, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, but we're not an item anymore. If she wants to leave because she's not happy in the relationship, she should leave because she's not happy in the relationship. She doesn't have to stay in a relationship because somebody else is threatening to kill themselves. You see, what this does is it takes a person's responsibility for their own life and it pins it on somebody else. My life depends upon your obedience to me. My life depends upon whether you're going to do as I say, and if you're not going to do what I say, then you're going to have to suffer the guilt because I'm going to die and it's going to be all your fault. Well, what a false premise that is. I would never, if I were going out with a person, stay with them because I thought they were going to kill themselves if I didn't stay with them. I mean, that's just a false thing. You should never have to feel that way. And so if you are trying to get a person, or if a person is trying to get you to feel responsible for their lives, it's like the alcoholic. Alcoholics do this all the time. The reason I'm an alcoholic and drink so much is because of you. You don't treat me right. If you were to move like I wanted you to, if you were to do this or that or the other like I wanted you to, then I wouldn't drink. And it's putting their drinking behavior and blaming their drinking behavior on somebody else so that somebody else becomes responsible for their life and how they behave. And that's just not fair, and it's not accurate, and it's not true. If somebody wants to drink, they'll drink. They may want to blame somebody for it, so that takes the guilt and the blame out of their hands and puts it on somebody else. But they were the ones who made the decision to drink, and they're the ones that are drinking. So I've counseled a lot of people who are in this kind of situation, you know, where somebody will say, well, if she didn't do this, I wouldn't drink. If she had done something different, I wouldn't drink. And if I had a couple in couples counseling, and one who was the alcoholic, which generally with the people I saw were the men, and they were blaming their wives because they were blaming their wives for drinking because they didn't do what they wanted them to do, I would just not let them get away with it. And I would say, just a minute. I mean, I don't know as I use this particular language. It depends upon who I saw and what their language skills were and what they would understand and what they would respond to. You always have to speak in a language that they can adapt to. But I would say, you know, you are the one who had made the decision to drink. It's not her fault. No matter what she did, you would still drink because you wanted to. You want to blame her for it so you don't have to take the responsibility for your own actions. But truthfully, it's not her fault if you drink. If you drink, it's because you want to, and trying to blame it on somebody else will not work. It won't work in this office. It won't work with me. Now, the beauty of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, is that people face each other down when they're trying to manipulate. It's harder to do this with a suicide. You know, a person feels guilty. I want to leave the person. I can't do it because they're going to kill themselves. You can't say, well, go ahead and do it. You can't say that you want them to do it. But you have to be straight with them and say, you make the decision for your own life. I don't. If you decide to kill yourself, I don't want you to do it. But don't pin it on me, because I'm not responsible for what you do. You will have to take responsibility for your own life. No one else can take responsibility for you. And you have to make it clear that the manipulative tactics that they want to use will not work, that you will not accept it. Sometimes you have to put back on the person what they are dishing out to you. Now, you don't have to be mean about it, but if somebody said to me, I'm going to kill myself, and I mentioned that in the last segment of a girl who did that, and I said to her, I don't want you to do it, but I'm not going to take responsibility for your life, and I'm not going to feel guilty because it's not my fault, and you're not going to put guilt on me for something that you're doing to yourself that you made the decision to do. See, we have to own up to our behavior. If our behavior is not right, we have to own up to that. It doesn't mean we don't need help. It doesn't mean we can't get help. But to pin our lives on somebody else and make them responsible for us, that's not true. It may be true in a child, because a child's not going to be able to take care of themselves. But it's never true between adults. So, fake notes, manipulation for attention, possibly to change things. Those are the only reasons that I can think of why anyone would even bother to write a fake note. But the real notes and the fake notes are sometimes so similar that it's hard to tell the difference. So here are the 4 categories of notes that people write that are true notes, not fake notes. And as I said before, about 1/3 of the people who plan on committing suicide will write a note. And this is the reason they want to do it. They want to ask for forgiveness. They feel that the reader will not understand why they did it. So they're asking for forgiveness. They feel bad about it. They don't want to hurt the person, but at the same time, they don't want to live either. So they make that decision to do it, and they're asking forgiveness. Another reason to write a note is that a person has suffered from an incurable illness, is in a lot of pain. They're not asking for forgiveness. They assume that the reader will understand. Now here again I say these things kind of blend back and forth. You can have a note in which the person asks for forgiveness and still explains the reason. I mean, they've been subdivided into these different categories, but sometimes some of these categories meld together. A third reason, it's an accusation. Usually no forgiveness is asked for in an accusation, but the person is blaming somebody else for their death. It's your fault I did this. You know, if you'd been a better person, if you'd been a better parent, if you'd been a better brother or sister, I wouldn't have come to this point. It's all your fault. I read a note once, it was interesting. I know where I'm going, and boy, I'm going to be ready for you when you come. And he called the person the names. It's all your fault. I can't stand you. I hope that you have a lot of trouble in the rest of your life for what you've done for me. You know, not asking for forgiveness, but accusing somebody else of something that's terrible, and they're just going to get out of it, and then they blame another person for that. But that can be a true note. You know, as I said so many times before, we have to take responsibility for our own lives, but this can be a true note. Sometimes they leave instructions. This can be very impersonal. There may be no explanation. This is what I want you to do. I've decided to end it all, and this is what I want you to do. All of our important papers are in the drawer, the top drawer in the desk in the kitchen. You'll find all your instructions there, and that's about it. You know, these do blend together. As I said, these do blend together. So those are the types of suicide notes. Now, what I did, I have a lot of real suicide notes, and I have some fake ones too. And I can't really read them all because I can't track down the people who wrote the notes to find out if they're alive, or to find out, get permission to read the notes. So I have taken some suicide notes, and I've tried to write it so that it sounds almost exactly like they wrote. Some of them real and some of them fake, and I'm going to tell you which is which as we go along. This would be a note. This is very close to the original. I need to say goodbye. I haven't told you. I did not want you to worry. I've been feeling bad for 3 years. It's my heart. I think this is best. I'm in the car. Call the police, but don't come out there. I love you. Goodbye. It was a true note, very close to the original. It was a true note. There's an explanation. There's, in a sense, an asking for forgiveness. I haven't told you. I didn't want you to worry. And there's an explanation as to why this person did it, and also where he was going to be found, and instructions not to go out to where he was going to be found. Call the police, don't come out here. So the person found the note, and he's giving an explanation. He's kind of asking for forgiveness. He's letting him know that he cares for them, and he's giving them instructions as to what not to do. Call the police. What to do? Call the police. Don't come out here. That was a true note. Here's another note. I'm tired of living, so I've decided to end it all. Hope you won't be distressed. Fake, fake, fake. You could almost feel it out, you know. Most people just, they're not going to say, I'm tired of living, I'm going to end it all. They're kind of flip, they're kind of casual. People who write true suicide notes are not flip, and they're not casual about it. This is a very serious thing, and they deal with it like it's a very serious thing. It was similar to a fake note. Here's another note. I just can't take it anymore. This is no way out, but this has me down. I, and the name was given, give up everything to, and the name was given, whatever I have. It was a true note, because he had instructions as to who, he named himself, He had instructions as to what to do and who was going to get his things, and I just can't take it anymore. Now, a statement like "I just can't take it anymore" would assume that the reader of the note knew what he was talking about. The first note, "I need to say goodbye. I haven't told you. I didn't want you to worry." There's more of an explanation. In other words, the person is now coming out and explaining things. But a person who says, "I can't take it anymore, so goodbye," he assumes the reader knows what he's talking about. He doesn't go into any explanation, whether he's ill, whether he's sick, whether he's in trouble, whatever it is. That was a true note. Impersonal, though, wasn't it? A lot of those notes giving instructions are impersonal. "I've done it. This is what I want you to do." And that's it, you know. Here's another note. "I'm sorry for all the trouble. I love you. I am disgraced. I hope you will be okay." True note. What is he doing? He's apologizing. He's asking for forgiveness. He's stating that he loves the person, and then he's stating what his personal situation is. He is disgraced. "I hope you will be okay," giving them some comfort, the fact that I care about you and I want you to be all right. It is a true note. You know, it was interesting. I have, the church gave me a Kindle Fire HD, and I was reading the news on the Kindle. And one of the news, and I just read this yesterday, there was a Franciscan. Now I'm assuming he's in an order of monks, which is a part of the Catholic Church, but the article said that there was a Franciscan who had stabbed himself to death, and he left a note. Now it did not say specifically what was in the note, but it did say that he was sorry for all of the trouble he had caused. He had evidently molested people, especially young boys, and it had caught up with him, and he felt guilty about it. So he's basically saying, "I'm sorry that this happened." And then he just killed himself by stabbing himself. They found his body. So I don't know if it was a long note. They didn't give a reprint of what the note actually said, but it was obvious that he was admitting to the fact of what he did, and then he saw no way out. And because of that, he stabbed himself to death, and they found him. Okay. Another note. "It's been great, but I can't go on. The insurance will take care of you. Be happy." Fake note. How do I know? He's saying the insurance will take care of everything. Now, anyone who commits suicide knows, or probably knows, that insurance will not cover for a suicide. And so people who want to commit suicide, but they want the insurance to help their families after they're gone, will usually stage an accident to make it look like an accident, so it's not known that this was a suicide attempt, and then the insurance will cover because it was an accidental death, even though it basically was an attempted suicide that was successful. So when a person mentions insurance in a note, it's probably not a true note. Insurance does not cover, and I guess you know that. "It's all my fault. This is the only way I can settle the trouble I've caused. I am so sorry." True note. It's his fault. He's admitting to what he's done, and he wants to make amends for the trouble that he's caused. The only thing he can do is just get out of the situation. He's sorry about it. He's asking for forgiveness. It is a true note. And here's another one. "I can't go on. I can't take it. Sorry, I'll take the easy way out." That's going to be a fake note because there's no such thing as an easy way out by suicide. And they don't look at it. Suicide people don't look at it. "I can't go on. I can't take it." But then when he says, "I'll take the easy way out," that's the giveaway. For a suicidal person, it's not an easy way out. They're going to lose their lives over it if they're successful. So that would be a tip-off that might not be a correct thing. It might not be a real note. So Some people have asked me, and I'm just going to answer this question now because some people may be thinking about it. We have enough time to do this. What about suicides in the Bible? Did anyone in the Bible ever kill themselves? Well, there are 4 suicides in the Bible, so I'll run over this quickly. Judas, we know, killed himself after betraying Jesus. He went and hung himself. That's in Matthew 27:5. And he cast down the pieces of silver in the temple and departed and went and hanged himself. Now, that's in the New Testament, and most people who have read the New Testament are familiar with this. But in the Old Testament, Saul killed himself by, the Bible says, falling on his own sword. In other words, he killed himself by stabbing himself. And in Chronicles, and I better tell you what's going on with Saul. He was in a battle situation. He was going to be captured. He was losing the battle. He was going to be captured by the enemy. He thought he would be abused by the enemy, which was quite possibly true, and he didn't want that to happen. He asked his armor bearer, the person who was carrying his arms, his weaponry, which would be, of course, different types of swords, he asked him to kill him because he didn't want to live and be abused after being caught. And the armor bearer refused to do that. He couldn't make himself do it. So Saul killed himself. So after Saul killed himself and the armor bearer was sure that he was dead, he killed himself too. He did it the same way. His leader was dead, and he was going to be captured too, so he killed himself, but he waited until Saul was finished killing himself before he killed himself. Those are in Chronicles, 1 Chronicles 10, verses 4 and 5. The other person, the 4th person, would be Samson. Remember the story of Samson and Delilah? Samson and Delilah. Samson lost his strength because he revealed to Delilah, his lady friend, who was no friend, that she could lose. If he lost his hair, he'd be weak. Remember, he was so strong, he could kill animals and everything with his own hands. Well, he let that slip, that if she cut his hair, that he'd be weak. So his hair was cut by a Philistine who was the enemy, and he was weak. They also gouged out his eyes, so for years he worked with him because he couldn't see and he was weak. What they forgot was the fact that his hair was growing back. They forgot to keep cutting his hair. So after a celebration, he was in this building. There were 3,000 people there for a celebration. He entertained them, something that they had him do every so often. When he was brought back, he asked the person who led him by the hand, which he had to have done because he had no eyes, he wanted to lean against 2 pillars so he could rest. So the man let him rest against 2 pillars, and he knew his strength was back. So he prayed to God, and he said to God, let me die with the Philistines. And so he shook the pillars, the whole building crumbled, everybody died, over 3,000 people died, and he died also. His prayer to God, let my strength be as it was, and let me die with the Philistines. So some people consider that because he did it and he knew he was going to die, that counts as the 4th suicide in the Bible. And if you think of it that way, he did, in a sense, kill himself by doing that. And he did it by his own hand. Nobody made him shake those pillars, but he wanted to destroy the Philistines, and in the process, he would die too. So some people consider that's the suicide. So I'm going to close it here. We'll continue next time. I just have 1 segment left, and we'll do something else.